Hi, Florian. How are you?
Oh well, how are you? Funny, why is your site or blog called the Mary Sue?
Oh,
I think really funny name, by the way.
thank you. We did it because the idea is that the Mary Sue was a derogatory term for female characters, where we're like, well, men can get to be basically Mary Sue's. Like Luke Skywalker is technically a Mary Sue when you think about it. So why do they get to be, but we don't get to be?
Yeah,
So the idea is that
I now get it. Yeah. Very true.
why not?
Yeah,
Uh, but so with this movie in particular, and just
yeah.
film in general, it's always about like the story you're telling and kind of the world that you're building. And as a director, what was it about the magical flute that kind of, or the magician's flute? Sorry, no wait, but right the first time, wasn't I? I'm losing my mind today. I'm so sorry. But
The Magic Flute, but the magicians
yeah,
are. Yeah, maybe you come back to those as well.
it's like, and my brain just went whoosh.
Or
Um, but with the magic flute, what was it about this story as a whole that made you want to tell it in the first place?
um, several reasons, but I think the strongest one was that I myself grew up playing classical music. I studied classical music, several instruments. I wanted to become a conductor, and um, I'll never forget the moment when I saw Amadeus the first time. I mean,
Mhm.
I have a nerdy side of me. I grew up in the 80s, so I'm a huge Star Wars fan and I love Spielberg movies and all that. But on the other hand, I fell in love with Amadeus and with how it managed to actually create emotions with classical music, even with people that have no idea about those music. And I thought, wouldn't it be great using a story like the Magic Flute, which is a fantasy story where fantasies become mainstream now. You know, even my parents watch Game of Thrones and they know what dragons are and evil queens and stuff like that, and they like it and they enjoy it. I thought, okay, that's probably the moment now where you could do that. And maybe we need a little story to lead the audience in. And that's how the idea of that, the frame story with the boarding school came, where we thought, okay, there's so many people out there that have no relation with classical music or opera. We have to give them something else that they know, that they're familiar with, so that they have their safe base as well. And I think that was the reason why I really wanted to make that movie, because I thought, okay, it's about love. It's about finding the position in your life, coming of age. What is 80s cinema all about? And that's a perfect combination, and it's the right moment now just to do it. And so that was basically the reason why I thought, okay, no, that's the movie. I really want to do it.
Yeah, and I think this question might not work because I was classically trained in piano, so I was like I related to it because I was like I understand the musical aspect of it, and I'm a
Ah, great.
fantasy nerd,
Yeah,
so like both elements that I would like. So I don't know how this would
yeah,
work with also you, where I'm like, well, how do you kind of make that open ended for an audience who wouldn't instantly relate to something that is a fantasy based and classical musical based piece?
yeah.
Like, how do you as a director approach it as, yes, I'm trying to make this as universal as possible while it is still such a specific kind of relatability, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think by trying to find the right balance between the things. I think that was playing, especially in our days. If you do a movie, you have the challenge compared to TV shows. Actually, you don't have that much time anymore. So TV shows have the huge advantage, they can lean into a character for half an hour, for an hour, explore the character, and as an audience, I enjoy that as well. And the challenge within a movie is if you don't have a fully known IP that everybody knows, is like introducing new characters, introducing story parts in a way that the audience instantly clicks, understands us, and can sort those. And that was, I think, one of the challenges to find the right balance here, creating characters that give you a certain impression where you don't need like a huge whole lot of background info and backstory to understand how these characters work, and but nonetheless, on the other side, creating a world that's believable. And in contrast to that, having the magic world, making that really magical compared to the real world. That's what I mean with finding the right balance. It was a
Mhm.
lot, you know setting something up and comparing it with the other parts and seeing, okay, does that work in that balance?
Yeah, and I think I do think it is very interesting because you talked about how you loved Mozart and Amadeus, but I do have to. So was that your intention with getting F. Murray Abraham or Abram, where you were like, I have to have him in this movie because of how he is? He's kind of known. I mean, I knew him as Amadeus when I was younger. Like that's where I was like, yeah, like now that he's back in and everything, I was like, this is really cool. But like, was that ever a goal, or was it just kind of like this cast came together and it just worked out that it was like it is a classical piece, but
Yeah,
also create for a minute?
yeah, it's more the latter. And I was actually I hadn't thought of him. And so I had a little short list myself of like 2, 3 actors where I thought, okay, they could be cool for Longbow. And then we got Sophie Holland on board, a really brilliant casting director from London. She did, amazing stuff like Wednesday and wherever. And she came up with Murray. But actually, in that moment, I think if I'm recalling it right, she didn't remember that he was in Amadeus. She just thought he is a brilliant actor for that part. And I got, and then as a director you get lists, and it's a little longer list, and you kind of try to find out, okay, because you're trying to find out with the casting director, okay, how do you click what you like and things like that. And I saw Eva Maria, I was like, oh, that would be amazing to have him on that. And I was sure that he'd say no, because and it was really, and then we got in touch with him and he wasn't sure. And then at some point, his wife made him. She recently passed because she was really sick. But that was one of the last things. And he didn't want to leave her because she was sick. And she said, she insisted, and then basically said, your career started with Mozart. And I think it would be good if you do that now. So she sent him over. She stayed in New York. He came, we shot. And then it's like, it's my first big movie. And working with a guy with F. Murray Abraham is a big honor. It was a big joy. And there's also one scene where he talks to Amir Wilson about his future. And then he says, I fear probably, and he uses the word mediocre, which is the last word he uses in Amadeus. As an old man, he walks through, and makes his cross and talks I congratulate you, everyone, to your mediocrity. And he didn't want to say that line. And so we started shooting, and after 2 days of shooting, he asked whether I could come to his house, because he had a little house in the castle complex, and went there. And he said, okay, I thought about it, really enjoyed it. I'm going to say that line. And that was like a moment where I was like, he was going to repeat that. So the trust he put into the project and into me, that was very, very rewarding and great, and a fantastic experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was one of those where I like saw, before I even watched the movie, I saw all of the information about it and was like, that feels so intentional. But it was like in a movie inspired by this. But it is really just, I love the balance of the cast of including like newer talent that we haven't really seen mixed with like, I'm a theater kid and I watched Misfits, so like I know Ewan Rowan, like who's also in Game of Thrones, so people like know him. So it's such a mix of like actors we know and love and a newer generation of actors. And when you're making something like this that is very, like you said, kind of 80s inspired in the sense that it's a coming of age story, but it's a lot of actors we don't yet know, and I'm sure like we're going to see them continue to grow in their career. What is for you as the director important to kind of marry those two sides of it, like have this younger generation with the actors we know and make it so cohesive that it works so well?
So I think that was two approaches. One is like, just from director's point of view, what I try to do is understand how actors work, what techniques they use to perform, and see my job in building a platform for them so that they can perform best in that very moment. And the other one was very friendly but demanding a certain level of professionalism, that we're all artists and we all are aiming for a certain goal, but we're only going to reach for that if we all perform well. And I think especially the more experienced ones, he came like on the second day to me and said, that's the first time in an ensemble where I'm one of the oldest ones, and I feel responsible for the younger cast, and I just want to let you know I'm going to take care of it. And that was really nice. I mean, you wouldn't have had to, come and say that. And there was a team spirit that developed that, of course, the opera singers were singing much better. But they showed to I always call them the kids that it doesn't matter, that it's about finding your own personal voice. And of course, the kids knew that even though they're much younger, they're much better actors than the opera singers because they overact and they used to be on the stage and do like big movements and stuff like that. So I think, and I see my job as a director as well, like creating that atmosphere so that everybody feels secure and can perform best, and that it's no problem. Everyone has deficits. No one's perfect, and that you're open about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really love the movie, and so I can't wait for everyone to get to see it and get to fall in love with it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.